the conference today, what I would like to share with you is what happens as we begin to be awakened on the journey. And so you notice the title is Discovering the Truth. Probably the passage in Scripture that is most symbolic of what happens on the journey as we open ourselves up to the truth is the Transfiguration. And let me just read a part of that. We'll begin with that. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up the high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Lord, it is good that we are here." We all know that experience, don't we? When we work towards something and we get that sense of, oh, I've come home. I'm reconnected again with what was meant to be from the very beginning. So the mountain in Scripture is really the place of transformation. It's a wonderful symbol because to get to the top of the mountain, we need to do a lot of climbing, don't we? And so going up the mountain is often considered the time of purification. It's really our journey in life. And so it symbolizes the spiritual awakening that we all are desiring. And what happens at the top of the mountain? Jesus explodes into presence. The disciples, the apostles really see Jesus as he is. And what happens? They bow down. They can't even look at it fully. It's too much for them. It overwhelms them. And so another way of saying it, Jesus just turns into light. When you think of light, light is everywhere, isn't it? And so the purpose of the journey, of our journey, is really to go up the mountain of our life, to let go, to let God dismantle our falsities, our illusions, our distorted beliefs, our illusions, and really to begin to experience God as God is, in the light of the transformation. And really, as we are with that, we, like what the disciples say, it's good to be here. We begin, what happens is we begin to experience God's presence, not only in ourselves, but we begin to experience God's presence in every part of creation. As our falsity drops away and we're dismantled of it, we find God everywhere. We find God in the beauty of creation. We find God, we see the people that we love in a whole different way. And we even find God in those who we don't like and who maybe because of their life experience, their true self is pretty covered over and hidden. But because of our faith, we can begin to perceive that and to see through that because of our own experience. And so what happens as we go up the mountain is that we discover not only who God is, but who we are, and that we are created in God's image. And every human being is created in God's image. And in our own uniqueness, whatever that may be, with our particular gifts or limitations, God is working through that, and in that, and with us, to bring us into fullness. No wonder the disciples said, it's good for us to be here. It's good to be home. It's good to be who God created us to be. But remember, in the passage of Transfiguration, the disciples were led up the mountain. We need to surrender. We need to be led. Some of us get into it so much that we want to do it our way, don't we? You know, one of our sisters who died this past year, Sister Lita Zeller, and actually Lita was only in her 60s, and she was working full-time in parish ministry. And one morning she simply didn't wake up. She died in her sleep. We found her. And one of the treasures that she left us was a whole set of poems that she had written throughout her lifetime. Most of us, I know I had no idea that she was writing these poems. She might have shared them with a few people, but most of us were completely surprised. And so I would like to read you her poem about the mountain, because her insight is just speaks to what we've been talking about. She entitles it My Path. Finding true self has been like climbing the mountain of life, covered with freshly fallen snow, not yet walked on. I ask, where is my path? The answer I got was, walk up the mountain, and there will be a path. It was not a matter of seeing clearly what was on top of the mountain and simply walking to it, for the path was circuitous, fraught with risk, and only mine. I had to keep climbing the mountain in faith that the goal would appear. And it did appear. Not before me, not within me, not beyond me, but to no one, nowhere. It appeared not in a thing to be acquired or a place to be arrived at, but in the transformation of my heart. While climbing the mountain of life, trying to get somewhere I am not, trying to find the place where the divine resides, trying to achieve higher levels of spirituality, my transformation is the realization that I am the mountain. The journey takes place within us, isn't it? We don't look outside of ourselves, or we discover that it's not to look outside of ourselves. So we carry, as we walk up the mountain, as Lita mentions, we carry a lot of baggage with us, don't we? We think we need certain things. We always fill our suitcases with too much, don't we, when we go on a trip? People warn us, say take as little as possible. We're always afraid we might need this. You would think we were going to a desert island where we couldn't get anything that we need along the way. But again, you know, that's just another expression we're just not real secure. Our exaggerated need for security and for control and to be affirmed. It's like they come in little tiny ways. And so we don't realize that the mountain that we're climbing is really within us, and that the God we're looking for at the top of the mountain is already within us. And so the spiritual journey is really a process of growth and change. And what happens is, when we say we have a lot of baggage, this is an image of the true self, in the very core of our being, who God created us to be, the word that God spoke when God first thought of us, even before we were conceived in the womb of our mother. God thought of us, and we are a particular word, a unique word. But from the time of our birth, our first few years when we are so needy and are so dependent on others to answer our needs, to the degree that we struggle with that, for our security, for our affirmation, for power and control, for over-identification, to the degree that we get exaggerated needs and illusions, it's like it builds like layers around our true self, because we're trying to protect ourselves, actually. And so all of this is in place again by the time we're 7 years old. So it's like when we look at ourselves and we see our limitations, this is our cross, isn't it? To look at and say, this is who I am. And somehow